I just played a 10-minute rapid game on chess.com and my opponent spent exactly 10% of his time, 1 minute, 60 seconds exactly, on move 4. Move 4. I was beginning to wonder if he was ever going to make a move or just let all 10 minutes dwindle by. I mean, my goodness, this pissed me off just enough to make me think, you know what? I need to win this game. I need to. Also, I was playing the game for content for this YouTube video and I didn't want to look like a fool in front of all of you. Let's jump into the game. If you've seen my videos, then this opening should not be a shock to you. We have a Caro-Kann, an advanced Caro-Kann with bishop f5. Now, at this point, especially at the 1800 level, everyone should know what they play against bishop f5 in the advanced Caro-Kann. Everyone should know what they play. My opponent spent an entire minute, 60 exact seconds on this move. Why? I don't know if he was getting the pizza at the front door or something, but it pissed me off just a little bit. I was just kept waiting. Look at this, 9:56 on his clock, 8:56. I was sitting there like, okay, is he ever going to make a move or am I just going to win on time 10 minutes in the future? I mean, come on. I even sent a little chat like 50 seconds into his move. I was like, hello? Question mark? And then he played knight f3, and I'm like, okay, my guy. So I'm a little bit pissed. So I start playing very quickly. I start playing e6, knight d7, no time on that move. Bishop d3, okay, let's trade bishops, and knight e7. Bishop g5, okay, pins my knight, but let me just move my queen. And that I'm playing quickly because I've played all of this before. Practically, if not this exact position, this is, one's very similar. The bishop comes out and pins the knight to the queen. You just queen b6 and you hit the pawn because you moved your bishop away from it. So now this pawn is weak and you have to waste, white wastes a move playing b3 to defend the pawn, but now c3 is a little bit weak. Of course, the knight is not able to develop to c3 here. And you've created a few dark squared weaknesses in your position, and that's why black, it's minus 0.1 instead of here it's just equal, right? But it's not a huge thing, just a slight thing. And c5 attempts to, put some pressure in the center, get my knights out here, and life is good. Knight to d2, knight b to d2, and, knight c6, okay. And bishop back to e3. This was also strange. It's not great. White should instead just, castle. And if I trade in the center, big whoop, you're going to get your rook to the open file, and I'm just going to develop my bishop somewhere, castle, and we're going to have a game. But instead, I don't know, bishop e3 is like, you went out to g5 thinking, I pin his knight to the queen! And now I have to go back to e3 to defend my center, even though he wasn't attacking it in the first place. I was just putting pressure on it. I wasn't threatening to win a pawn or anything. Anyway, he goes back to e3, and I play bishop e7, and we both castle. The rook comes out to the c file, okay, and I chop. I chop in the center just to clarify the situation and maybe get my rook to help fight for the c-file and, just weaken the center a little bit, right? Because right now he's got all of this going on, but after takes, now this pawn is a little bit weak, right? At least my pawn chain is very well solidified by my rook and my king down here, whereas this center, if I can get to this pawn, I'm going to be having a good time. But white takes on d4 with the knight? I think he wanted to set up some kind of discovery on my queen, but this just hangs a pawn. Because I hit the queen. So there is no, discovery or anything like this, because, well, you can just take the queen. Yeah, knight e7 check, okay. Yeah, bishop takes b6. Knight c1. And if you follow this long capture chain, right, bishop back, and you give a check here to save your knight, of course, the king runs, and you just play something like the computer says b6 or knight takes c3, ignoring this. But anyway, it's a long sequence of moves, but it works, right? That's the point, is that you hit the queen. So if the knight ever moves, you can always take their queen or just move your queen out of the way, and the queen is still going to be hanging, right? That was my entire thought process. So the queen slides back, and I play bishop c5. This breaks any type of discovery going on my queen. I can't draw an arrow here. And also just threatens to win a pawn. You know why? 1, 2 defenders, and 1, 2, 3 attackers on the knight. So what white should do is release the tension by taking here, And we get like knight c6 and, you know, bishop takes, and this is fine. I mean, you'd still, you know, be down a pawn from when you blundered e5, but, you know, you're chilling. Instead, they play b5, or b4. b4 just invites me to win the pawn. Except I don't take it. Why? Let's get into that. Let's unpack that, shall we? b4, I take here, thinking I win a pawn, right? You know, bishop takes, knight takes. I win a pawn, and I'd be up 2 pawns. But instead I see this, and for some reason I was like, my knight is attacked, and I don't want to take here because I walk into a pin. This is what I was afraid of. I hit the queen, though, so the queen's got to move. But I figured, I don't know if I really want to be walking into the pin, especially with a loose knight on e5. Apparently, I could have done this, and it's totally fine, because I can just play something like knight e to c6 to add defense to my knight, or even just queen takes b4. What a move. Leaving this knight to hang. You know why? Knight e2 is a fork. King moves, you take, and just play like rook ac8, and when the dust settles, sure, white has 2 pieces for the rook, but you have 3 extra pawns. Look at that. And black is just better. And the weakness of the king as well. The back rank issues are there. But, you know, I'm only human. I was afraid of the pin, so I went back with my knight. And we have a3 defending the b4 pawn, which was under attack. So I bring my rook to the c file, knight b3, and the queen drops back to d8. Why did I drop my queen back? Well, I saw the knight coming into c5, and I wanted to be able to play b6 when the time came. So I dropped my queen back, thinking, okay, I can always, you know, get over here. This is fine. You know, f6, maybe here, and the queen is flexible on this square, and b6 can now be played. So after, you know, we have f4, my knight drops back, looking to get to, you know, the f5 square to pressure d4. The knight does jump into c5, but here's the thing. I can just play b6. I can play b6. You're not going here. You're not going here, because your knight is just very silly over here. So, and probably getting trapped in a couple of moves. But, yeah, so you're not going there. Instead, the knight has to go back to d3. Yeah, just knight f5. I hit the bishop, I hit the pawn, and I'm chilling. So the queen slides over to f2 to help defend the pawn with the bishop. But here's the thing. I don't even care about taking the pawn. I just take the bishop. I'm up a pawn, and now my opponent doesn't even have a bishop. To be fair, this bishop sucks, and I shouldn't really be taking it because the knights are just better than the bishop. Look at all these dark squared pawns. Look at them. The bishop is locked in a cage here in the dark squared pawns, and this knight is doing a very good job of pressuring the center and maybe even attacking the king in the future. So I shouldn't be taking the bishop, but I do. I'm silly for that. Anyway, queen f6. This was the idea, as I hit the pawn now. So the knight jumps in. I take it. And here I was expecting this to open up the rook and try to get some attack on my king. And I was going to go here and, you know, maybe try and double rooks or something, you know, figure it out. But instead, my opponent takes this way, which is silly, because you pushed f4 for a reason. And that was to open up the f-file for your rook. But now you're given the golden opportunity to do that, and instead you take like this, and now I've got to pass pawn. Okay. So I slide my queen up to f5. We have h3. I don't know what, preparing some g4 if he's trying to get uber aggressive. But hey, I play rook c4. Rook c4. Trying to double my rooks. Maybe even play this at some point. So rook takes, pawn takes, and now my passed pawn is one step closer to becoming a queen. So we have b5, which is, I don't know what b5 is, to be honest. I was expecting the rook to go and try and stop the pawn, maybe the queen, and I was going to bring my rook to defend the pawn and try and push with my queen. But instead, b5, possibly preventing me from going b5 to defend the pawn, but now this pawn's really weak, and you're going to have to waste a move defending it, but then this pawn's also going to be weak. So anyway, rook goes to the d file, which is very open, looking very nice, and I want to get my rook to this square. I want to go to d3. I put my queen on d3. So I was thinking, you know, rook to d3, and I win this pawn this way. But instead, I play queen d3. If you take, well, in cd3, and this pawn is just too close to promotion. King f2, d2, king here. Excuse me. Rook stops the pawn. okay? But I can always go to d3, and now I'm going to pick off all your pawns. So I don't even care that you win this pawn because, well, not here, because I get mated. Ha! You have to give yourself Luft first, and then, you know, rook d8 here and here. And white is, you know, holding on, but I'm still up a pawn in the rook endgame, and there's a lot of weaknesses in the white position. That's what white should have done. But instead, white goes here. Thinking, yeah, let me defend my queen through the queen and attack the queen, and yeah, my rook looks nice, and he can't take me because he thinks. But, okay, you've left the back rank, and this leaves you open to a check and a fork. So, yeah, now you're down 2 pawns. And this pawn is still alive. So we have a few moves later. F5 sacrifices a 3rd pawn. That's a sacrifice to play e6. He's trying to open up my king, but here's the thing. It doesn't work. I just go here. And yeah, you can take, but there's no checks. So what are you doing? I'm just up 3 pawns. Okay, and now the queen goes here, and I think, you know what? I'm just going to force the queen trade, right? Because the queen pins the queen, so you force the queen trade, and I give up one of my pawns, but now I'm up 2 pawns. 2 pawns in a rook endgame. I got a couple of minutes. I went from waiting on my opponent to make a move for an entire minute on move 4 to now being down 3 minutes on the clock. But here I was like, I need to win this game. So I go after the pawn, he defends. I offer a rook trade, which you cannot accept because the pawn would just promote. And if you tried to stop the pawn, well, then I've got a bunch more, so it's not going to work. The rook goes to d3. King starts walking up. I play g5 to take away squares from my opponent's king so he cannot march forward. And I play a6, trying to push these pawns to create a passed pawn over here. g4 is not great because I just play f4. I just play f4. And now I've got a passed pawn once again. Okay, h4, cool, let me defend my pawn. Awesome. The rook goes here, attacking the pawn. Okay, let me defend the pawn. I'm pushing, I'm making progress. My opponent really likes to sacrifice pawns when he's already down a bunch of pawns. Chess don't work like that, man. So I take... And sure, I've got some weak outside passers, and you can try and do like this, right? And now you're behind the pawn, but just rook c3 check, you got to go back, and now I'm defending my pawn. I can always get here, and this pawn is going as well, so it's not going to work. But instead, we have this, and I give a check, and I should push this pawn. I should push this, right? And if you try to stop it, well, I've got this pawn, and both of them are going. But instead, I pushed this pawn. I was a little bit silly for that. Because of takes, and now the rook can take here, check. And it's actually a draw. Because you can't escape the checks. It's fully... And if you try to run this way, well, then the rook is just going to stop my pawn here. And it's just going to be a draw. And if anything, I might lose because of how close white's king is to my pawn, right? So, yeah, that was very silly of me. But he doesn't play that. I push f3, he takes, but he doesn't take here with check. Instead, he goes back. And now I'm winning. Because I get check. And rook f4. And now if you try this, well, it just doesn't work. Because guess what? I'm just going to keep walking forward. And eventually you're going to run out of checks. You can try this, but hey, I just queen. So I go here. He walked his king to e2, and I promote. My opponent resigned. Why? Well, even though all the pieces get traded, I've got the outside pass pawn. Yeah. So you just push. The king can stop the pawn, because the king is inside of the square, right? The king can stop this pawn. But it's not stopping both of them. Here's the thing. You just give up that pawn, and now this pawn is going. You know, I thought that was a pretty good game, but if you want to see an even better one of mine, probably my best defensive game of all time with 2 queen sacrifices, then make sure you check out this video. All right, have a good one, guys.